Hey, welcome back to the Real Estate Excellence Podcast with your host, Tracy Hayes. Each episode, I search out top producers in Northeast Florida real estate markets to be on the show. Recently, this guest came under my radar. He hails from Ocean City. His wife hails from Georgetown, Kentucky. From what I understand, he runs like the wind and he is fit as one can see as possibly, as both they are. Both are great runners and triathletes. A successful real estate business in Nocatee, Florida, and we will learn as his family just returned to Chattanooga for a triathlon with his wife Andrea, and came in second, which is an amazing feat, as I'm sure there was some top people there. Let's welcome Love the Florida Life, John Richardson of Remax Unlimited, to the show.
Thanks, Tracy. I'm really excited to be here and happy to be here with Andrea. This is an exciting time for our family. It's really fun.
Well, I'm glad to kick it off because you guys we'll talk about you guys joining forces here a little bit, and her joining your team and her retiring from education. We certainly want to do it. And I apologize. I botched my entire intro there a little bit. I tried to write it the day before, which I did. I think I did write it yesterday. And more information came to my head, and that was going through my mind as I was reading that. So
I think you nailed it.
Yeah, that's I think but I want to talk about a little bit your background, which I imagine you grew up in Ocean City, but you went to University of Kentucky. What sent you there? Because I imagine, is that where you guys met? I imagine.
Yes.
Yeah. So I grew up in Ocean City, New Jersey, like you said. It's a shore town. If anybody's not familiar with it, it's in Cape May County, so like the furthest southern point in New Jersey. It's Barrier Island. It reminds me a lot of Ponte Vedra Beach, actually. Mm-hmm. For those local that know Ponte Vedra Beach, Ocean City, New Jersey is pretty similar, except that it's very touristy. It's, the main industry and time there is the summer. So most of like my childhood development centered around my summers. That's kind of like how we counted things, right? Like, oh, that was 5th grade summer. That was 6th grade summer.
Yeah.
It was real coming of age type stuff. But living there, I think, shaped my personality. I have probably like a beach culture type personality, kind of like there's Ponte Vedra time, right? There's like Ocean City time, there's island time. Everything moves a little bit slower. People tend to be a little bit more even keel. But also something about Ocean City that I think helped shape me is that it's very entrepreneurial. A lot of my friends' families owned small businesses. My grandfather was an entrepreneur. He owned a business on the boardwalk, and like kids work early on. Like that was just part of it. When you turned 14, you got a job. So I got a job young, like as soon as I was able, in the state of New Jersey, let kids work. My parents were like, "Go get a job, John."
That is so interesting because I grew up on Cape Cod.
Okay.
And it's exactly the same way. Uh-huh. It was Labor Day to Memorial Day to Labor Day, and my parents were entrepreneurs. I 14 years old. Besides mowing lawns before that, at 14 years old, my first job was working the sport fishing boats. And same exact. You were just describing Cape Cod.
Yeah, I bet it's pretty similar, probably up and down the eastern seaboard, that there's like an inherent hustle kind of in the local people because you have such a small window of time to make like your whole year's salary, right? It's like you have to wake up. You can't take days off. And I think that part of me manifested a strong work ethic. And then from like an attitude perspective, like, just a lot of gratitude for the ocean. Like when you look at the ocean every day of your life, you're going to have like this sense of, man, I'm like a small, insignificant part of this big thing. And an additional thing with growing up near the ocean was just very orientating that like, hey, that's east. I know that's east. I know that's the ocean. It's hard to explain, I think, unless somebody's lived at the ocean, what that kind of does.
I agree.
But to get to Lexington, Kentucky, I mean, that was a completely like...
Yeah, that's so he keeps talking. I'm like, how'd you get to Lexington, Kentucky? How did you get there?
So I was a recruited track athlete. And when I turned, after the junior year of high school, July 1st is when coaches could start calling. Mm-hmm. And my mom said, if a coach is going to take the time to call you, you need to at least take the time to listen to what they have to say and then be polite enough to tell them if you're not interested in their school.
Yeah.
So the University of Kentucky called, and abiding by my mom's wishes, I took the phone call and loved the coach. I mean, he was fantastic from the get-go. He was very consistent with his recruiting calls. The team was very good, and I wanted to go to a big school. I wanted to go to like big time athletics. The SEC was great, and academics were a part of what I wanted to do, but athletics was the primary focus, and Kentucky had that. So I went there on a visit, and it was awesome. I'll be honest, I didn't think that I was going to stay there after college, right? That wasn't part of my plan to live in Kentucky. But when you fall in love, things happen. And I'm blessed to have fallen in love with Andrea, who is from there, and we lived there for quite a while.
Curiosity, I mean, competing at that level of sport and being recruited by, big Division I schools, it's a little easier today for kids to go and do some research on the coach and so forth. You'll hear say why, I have a friend of mine, his daughter, it goes to IMG over in Sarasota. She just committed to Florida for soccer, and one of the things is they just got a new girls soccer coach that has high regards. At that time, what kind of research can you do to find out? I assume you probably tried to do find out about this coach more than what he was just talking to you about.
Yeah, it's it doesn't seem like that long ago, but then I do the math. I'm like, it's 20 years ago. That's a decent amount of time. It seems like just yesterday. And technology has certainly changed, and this was before high-speed internet and stuff. But there still was like the internet. Like, I mean, I saw results, but the main thing I remember doing is reading media guides. So like actual printed books would get mailed to my house, and I look through it, and I remember going through the Kentucky media guide multiple times and being like, okay, this so-and-so, he's run this race. He's only a junior, so when I'm a freshman, he'll be a senior, and really kind of doing the math of what the team's going to look like. And then also there's just a whole lot of trust you put in the coach. And our communication at that point was probably different than it is now, because there was no text messaging. I don't think we were allowed to text message, nor was that even really like a popular thing. There was very little email even. It was all communication on the phones, right? So it wasn't face-to-face, obviously, 'cause that wasn't a thing. But we talked quite often, and I don't know. I can't speak for how kids are recruited now, but I imagine that's probably a lost art, is the actual like voice-to-voice communication.
So you felt comfortable with them, and then you went and made a visit and fell in love with Lexington. And the Bluegrass.
Lexington is a great city. I definitely have fond memories of going to school there, living there. It's a great college town, great economy, great schools, great people.
Yeah. All right, so we're going to flip over here to this lovely lady over here. Andrea, you're coming from Georgetown, Kentucky, which going to University of Kentucky is probably just a natural progression.
Oh, yeah, it was definitely like my dream growing up. Like, I have pictures when I was growing up, like in the UK, cheerleading outfit and football jersey, and just, it was definitely the dream to go there. My mom also went there, and her father went there. So I'm so happy that John came all this way, because I never would have met him. I feel like it was destiny for me to go there. But.
So did you guys like meet right away, or you guys been roughly the same age? Are you guys in the same grade level?
So no, I was a walk-on. My story is very different than John's. I was from Kentucky, dreamed of going to Kentucky, was able to walk on to the team and track team, and when I was a freshman, he was a junior. So he had already had some success, and
so he was going after, okay. I don't think we all do that. So, and now your degree, you went after, was that your goal, like going in, as you were an education major? I was an education major. Yeah. Was that your just initial thing? Hey, I'm going to go to school and I'm going to become a school teacher. That was your plan?
Yeah. My mom and my grandmother also were school teachers, so I definitely had a passion for serving children and love children. So that was my goal, and I went ahead and majored in education, got a master's degree in reading education, and worked in Lexington for 10 years as a teacher.
So I'm gonna fast forward your story a little bit, and obviously if you want to add something in the middle there. So recently, obviously you're here. You decided. Did you do a couple of years here in Florida?
Teaching, yes. I taught for 2 years here in Florida.
2 years here in Florida. And now John's business is growing and so forth. What was it? And I ask this question because going from education to real estate is actually very common. There's a lot of former teachers in real estate and doing very well. What was it, do you think, that from your standpoint, was it just a burnout, or is it just simply opportunity for you guys as a family? What helped you say, you know what, this is probably going to be a better path for us. I can step out of teaching. Not that you can't go back.
It definitely wasn't burnout per se. I think I was ready for a change, but I think I would have just done a different position, in my school. I loved my school. I still love it. My kids still go there.
Right.
But it was definitely a family decision to help our family, and he was in a position where he was doing so well and had the opportunity to hire, have some help. And so it made sense that way. And also just building something together, I think, is kind of what's driven me. Yeah, it's exciting. Yeah, like helping him and like fueling that, like our family and our business together is what my kind of drive behind it is.
We're gonna dabble into the working together here eventually in my second half of the show, because I've had a few couples on that, obviously there's a lot of couples that could not work together, and then go home at night. There's some that I've met, man, one's the visionary, one's the integrator, and they just work hand in hand. So we're going to dabble into that. And this is all new for you because you're studying to get your license. This is, you just, 3 or 4 months, so you've been kind of working with him full time since school ended in May or 1st of June. Yeah,
and school ended in June, or 1st of June. And that was kind of when I wasn't going to go back to teaching, but we have 2 young children. So really this summer was more like a normal summer for me, like just being home with the kids. And so that was actually quite the blessing.
So now the fall comes around, it's time to go back to work.
So I haven't really gotten to jump in as much this summer as I probably would have had it been during the school year.
Right.
So really this August is really when.
Well, since you brought up the kids, tell us a little bit about the ages, where we at there with kids?
We have 2 daughters, Reese and Rory, and they're in 2nd and 1st grade, so 7 and 6. They're very close. Best friends. It's fun. We love going to Disney World. That's our thing.
That's the thing.
Yeah, they're perfect age. We go there we love living here. We love being so close. We go there often.
Awesome. Awesome. All right. So now, John, I'm going to flip my camera here. You were a psychology major. What was that just a choice by default? You were focused on the track, or actually did you see something in psychology that was a possible career path? What was your initial career thoughts?
Well, the NCAA says that I have to choose a major, and it can't be track and field. So psychology was a good one. Like social sciences kind of open up to lots of different things. And I didn't want to be a psychologist necessarily, but I was fascinated by the brain. And I've always had a deep fascination with personal development and like concepts that have to do with self. So psychology was a pretty was in line with what I thought was interesting. And I knew I was going to go to graduate school eventually, whether it be business school or something. I knew that it wasn't going to stop there. So psychology it was. And it afforded me the opportunity to really focus on track while I was in school. It wasn't as academically demanding as maybe some other majors, but it also was interesting to me, which was an important thing as well. Yeah,
I mean, you got to be engaged. Okay, here this is the deep thought question. I'm a David Goggins fan. If you've watched or read his book, or if you watched his, he has many YouTube videos and so forth. Both of you are runners at a very high level. You're beyond just hobby. Obviously, both you were in track and field, but you accomplished doing the mile in under 4 minutes. There's a psychology in that. How your training and so forth, or even while you're doing that, and then Andrea being just doing the triathlon, there's a psychology of overcoming your brain telling you, hey, you've had enough, stop, and where you're pushing yourself through that. Give us a little bit of what you guys go through, and John, I'll start with you, and then Andrew, you were obviously 10 days ago? It has been 8 days ago.
It's still fresh.
8 days ago, yeah.
Still feeling it.
And I really love for you to share with us, like a couple of points during the race. I'm sure you were like, why am I doing this? Right? That had to go through your mind. But John, like the psychology of the sports, and I'm used to being a psychology major, and working with the brain and overcoming it. In relating it having to do with business, because there's so many times I'm sure we get up in the morning and we're like, why are we doing with this? I can go just get a 9-to-5 job. Why am I, pushing myself? How do you relate the sports to what you're doing now to motivate you each day?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I think high-level athletes are high achievers in other areas of life as well. Like the things that make them high-level athletes aren't necessarily that they're the fastest, have the best muscles, that they have the most quickness or like the athleticism, right? It's that up here in their mind, they're different and they're wired different. And I don't think I had an appreciation of like my own, like kind of the way I'm wired. It's a combination of like how I was born plus how I was raised. I have great parents who instilled an awesome work ethic in me, who pushed me, right? Like my dad didn't let me get away with not trying my best, and he would call me out on that. And I like love him for a lot of reasons, but especially for that, because it's transcended into not just a successful athletic life, but also a business life, and I'm a better father because of him. But where I'm going with that is that like I was just that way. Like I don't think that I saw it in myself the same way that maybe I see it in Andrea. Like I know that she is so mentally tough and I can see that on her, but like I'm probably that same way. It's just something that I've taken for granted. It's just that kind of, I view it as who I am. And so those days where I don't feel like going to the pool to swim, or I don't feel like prospecting, or I don't feel like doing X, right? Like I just tell myself, hey, that's not who you are. Like you are a person that likes hard work. You are a person that will grind. You are a person who's going to be successful no matter what. And developing that sense of like who you are is way more important than a why. So I know there's like a personal development concept about like know your why. I think it's much more important to know your who.
Know your why, and it sounds like, and clarify this for me, a lot of positive self-talk. That's not me. I'm better than this.
Yeah, I think it's a combination of like positive self-talk, but really just positive talk, right? It doesn't even need to be self-talk. Like I like to view things optimistically.
Well, I call self-talk like we're not verbally saying it, but we're thinking it.
Right. Just like processing positive thoughts, right? It's easier to process negative thoughts, but it's like a much like crappier outcome when you do it that way. So just like do a little bit of work on the front end and like train yourself to be positive, to think like no matter what happens, things are happening for you. If you're stuck in traffic, like, hey, it's happening for you, not against you. If you're like stub your toe, like, okay, that happened for me. I'm going to figure out a way to make this better. So I don't know that.
And go circle it back into real estate and what we have to do. Obviously, and in my business too, prospecting all the time. You're making those calls, and just because someone says no, I'm not interested, it's not you. Right. It's not you. They're or they hang. We hang up on telemarketing calls all the time. They're just not ready at that time. No one buys a house every other day, but you've got to be available every day to hopefully, when those people are available, that you are on top of their mind. So you're making those calls. And when they say no to you, they're not saying no because they don't like John. They're just saying, hey, I'm not ready to buy. I'm not ready to sell. and not looking to buy. Invest right now. I'm okay.
Not ready.
And move on. I think a lot of people, we like to think the no calls that call reluctancy.
Yeah. I think one of the hardest parts about entrepreneurship, and this is a real estate podcast, so we'll say the hardest part about real estate is that there's such a low barrier to entry that I think the perception is that it can be easy, but there's such a high barrier to success.
Yes.
And that high barrier to success comes with a lot of rejection. It comes with a lot of like exposure emotionally, right? Like you're putting yourself out there, offering to help, and very few people take you up on it because, like you said, like not everybody buys a house all that often, but you can still add value all the time, right? Like I don't like want to measure success by closed deals. Like I want to measure success by just adding value. If I can do that every day, like I'm going to be happy, and eventually, add enough value that you'll sell some houses.
It's that giving mindset. You're going to give, and then obviously when they are ready to they need to take, they're going to call for you and ask for your assistance.
Yeah, give freely, and then that's the go-giver concept.
All right, Andrew, let's step over to you. All right, so for those who are, and this is a true Ironman, right? Is that this? So we're biking 80 miles?
So you swim first.
2.5 miles.
2.5 miles. Yeah. Okay. And then bike 112. This one actually was 116 in Chattanooga. It's one that's a little longer.
Right.
And then a marathon, so 26.2 at the end.
And John was doing the camera work on this. I was getting the snippets coming through Instagram, and that last half mile or whatever is actually a slight incline on a bridge, right? A walking bridge or whatever it was. And he showed you there, and I could
first time you saw
mentally. Of course, mentally you're like, in 30 more seconds, I'm done with this. But tell us about the psychology that's going through your mind and different time periods of the swim.
Yeah.
I mean, because what is your strength? What do you love doing?
Oh, definitely running. I mean, that's obviously my background. So and it's a huge advantage in triathlon because it's always the last thing. And it's always like the hardest thing. So feeling confident in the run is great, except for it's still always the hardest.
Yeah.
No, but this was my first Ironman, right? I saw John do this Ironman last year, and I was inspired and knew that I wanted to do that. And so after the swim, you feel real good. I was smiling. It's only an hour in, I came out of the water happy and feeling great. And then I remember crying after the bike, just having some tears and just so happy tears that I was getting off the bike. Yeah. So sad that I still had to run a marathon.
Third choice.
I had to run a marathon after. So there's, and it's weird. You just go through it. It's, took me 10 hours. So in 10 hours, you have like such high highs and such low lows. And it's almost like, 5 or 6 different workouts. Like you start over, and you, just keep going. You just got to keep going.
What do you say to yourself when you feel, all of a sudden your mind starts to focus on the pain, right?
Yeah.
How do you change your mind there? What's the psychology?
That's a great question. You have to have a lot of different tricks in your tool belt. Like you have to have a lot because it's a long. A lot of times I think about training and how confident I should be. Like I'm ready. I can do this. A lot of times I would look. I remember always thinking, like, when's the next time I'm going to see, John and my kids? Like, when's the next time I'm going to be able to see them and, like, smile and they'll be cheering, that kind of fueled me. I also prayed a lot,
So there was a moment, John took a picture of the kids standing there on the side of the road while you were running by. And I told John that's a precious moment right there because mom's running the race.
Yes.
And how does that look like? Does that, like, give you a little adrenaline?
Absolutely.
Shot?
Oh, yeah. I mean, we tell our kids all the time, like, hard things are good things. If it's the hard thing, it's probably the better choice. Like, usually the hardest thing is the best thing. And they see, they've seen John do the Ironman last year, and they see, we've focused a lot on that. And having me do it, I think, just because they're both girls, I think it's it's valuable to me to show them that. And I think that they were so happy for me, and it made me feel so good. So I hope that they, remember that.
So give us, you came in second of the women, but you were, I think if I read correctly, like 40-something overall.
Yeah, so the men and women are different divisions, and so I did much better than I thought, which is so amazing. And then the top runner in every age group. So I was second overall, but I was first in my age group. Qualifies to go to the World Championship Ironman, which is in Kona, Hawaii. Oh, so that was such a great...
the one that's on TV.
The big one. It's like the holy grail of triathlon. We talked about it, kind of as like that would be cool one day to do that. So I'm going.
A little different climate. Isn't there like a part of that race where you're like on the...
Lava fields.
Yeah.
That's what you always see, the bikes, the lava fields.
Yeah.
It actually is happening this weekend. Like this year's World Championships this weekend, so I qualified for next year, so 2023.
Okay.
Yeah.
But you go in, so to go back to the point where, again, and I'm kind of reaching, you guys dig deep, but that to dig into when you're out there doing business, you don't want to make the calls. If your door knocking's your thing, whatever is your thing, or you wake up in the morning with should I work out? Shelly Florenz was on here from Compass. She says if she doesn't have her morning workout, she has a bad day. That's her thing. So she knows she has to get up and go, go do that at 5, 6 o'clock in the morning, whatever time she goes, and that's important to her. And it's the mental thing to overcome the brain. Am I right, John? Is that do you have to change the mindset?
Yeah, it's it's non-negotiable in a lot of ways, right? Like what's an example? Say somebody's like, I don't feel like getting out of bed today, but like most people will get out of bed. Nobody actually just stays in bed all day. Right. Like, but they have that feeling, right? I have a feeling I don't want to go to the pool, but like I know I'm going to, so I don't just put a positive spin on it and say, I get to go to the pool today. I can't wait. Like, because as soon as that goes away, like if I had a foot injury and I couldn't run, I would be dying to run. Like if I couldn't get in the pool because my shoulder was hurting, like I would be so miserable. Right. So just reframing it that like, oh, what an opportunity that God blessed me with the health that I can go do this. Right. For me, that's like such an easy switch.
I was thinking like training for the Ironman and like life, how it kind of correlates is you don't finish an Ironman, and you don't get to do an Ironman on that day. It's like all the work leading up to that is the reason why you're able to do it. And that's kind of like, I've seen John working in real estate from the outside, and it's like, he's not like, you know, the one payday, like the commission doesn't come. Like it's a huge,
you have to enjoy the journey.
Yeah.
That has to be what you're focused. You have to enjoy the journey. To tip it off with actually having a race and finishing and everyone being there is great, but you're not there for the payday. Right. You're there because you enjoy the journey.
Right.
And you hear
it's just the icing on the cake.
All right, we can go on forever, but John, you enter corporate America in the health field. And I obviously stole a lot of this from your podcast that you did last week, from that standpoint. But you, if I sum it up, and correct me if I'm wrong, or clarify it, you really weren't seeing a satisfaction there.
Yeah, I think that's a fair way to say it.
In corporate America, which I think a lot of people do. Some people just keep doing it because they just don't have the option. There's others that break out and do real estate or open their own business. Well, being a real estate agent is opening your own business, but go do something that's theirs, from that standpoint. But what was it about corporate America that was kind of just, I don't know, well, I'll just say wearing you out. You probably have a better description. What point to just say, hey, I just got to do something. I want to do something for me.
Yeah. I don't know that it's anything about corporate America. It's more about me. So like corporate America is great for a lot of people. And it was great for me for a long time. Like Tracy, if I'm being honest, I worked for a great company. I had great bosses. I had great coworkers. Like I really can't say that anything about it wasn't that good. All I can say is that for me, I always felt this longing and this calling for adventure. And I didn't know it was entrepreneurship. I didn't know what it was, except that I had always had like a side hustle or something else that I was doing that was kind of like fueling entrepreneurship. And then within the corporate world, like I was having progressive management experience. I was getting pay raises. I was getting compliments, things that like kind of like fueled the competitor in me.
Which any person working in corporate America would just, keep
going.
Like,
it was great. And again, like I said, a great company. I was in healthcare. I liked the nonprofit aspect of it. I could feel at times that what I was doing was benefiting people, right? That was important to me as well. But that overwhelming sense of like, man, you have something else that you're called to do did not go away, nor, and I still feel that today. Like, it's not like, I'm a real estate agent now and my life's complete, right? Like, I hope I never lose that sense of like wonder, or that sense of adventure, or that sense of like, hey, you got to get out there and like do something big, right? Like, I don't want to lose that. But I know that my life now feels much more fulfilling and exciting and exhilarating, if I'm going to be like super dramatic, right? Is that as an entrepreneur, as a business owner, as somebody who gets to decide exactly what every single day of my life looks like, it's much better.
All right, I'm going to tell you right now, because you make me think of myself. Okay, when we were talking, you're just talking about, is there something bigger that I should be doing? And that, the real estate isn't your end game. Like, oh, I'm in my happy place, and because there's something instilled in us that wants to drive, and that's where obviously a good lady in your life hopefully can ground you sometimes and stay focused on the main thing, because we can you'll keep looking for that other thing, but still not really realizing we have to do what brings the bread to the table, so to speak. So that'll go on for the rest of your life. I can't seem to shake it myself. Constantly looking, is this what I should be doing? Is this what I should be doing? And it's funny, I'll pick up a book or listen to a motivational, even just catch some short thing on motivational thing on YouTube or something for a few minutes, and it's like talking to me, and I'm like, I got to focus on the main thing. I got to feed the family too. So, but that keeps us going. That keeps us drive. Now, you did do some. I put on here life coach, because one of the statements you made in that podcast, and I wanted you to expand on it because I think it's so true. You said, and I assume this came from your training in being a life coach, but also obviously the people you were coaching. We can overestimate what we can do in a year, but we greatly underestimate what we can do in 10 years.
Yes, it's so true, and I see it time and time again in business. So I still work as a life coach. I work with entrepreneurs on scaling the business, on people who have a side hustle to going from their full-time job, their quote-unquote real job, into
Right.
taking that side hustle as their main career. And then I've been a coach of some kind for a really long time. So I just work with individuals that want to be better. And a common theme is that people expect success to come way more quickly than it does. And most people fail at whatever is important to them only because they didn't give it enough time. Not because they weren't capable of it, not because like bad things were happening. The only reason they fail is that they didn't let time do its thing. I'm a big believer that consistency plus hard work is going to equal results. It's always true, no matter what field you're in.
Well, I want to just expand on that real quickly. When you were training, because your goal was to do the mile in under 4 minutes, how, looking back now, you may have reflected on this at some time. How long did it take you to cut that time down to get you there?
Yeah,
Let alone already be a top-notch runner already.
Yeah. So I became a quote unquote good track athlete or good runner probably around 7th or 8th grade is when I started to have success. I would say at that point in time, I thought, hey, it would be cool to someday break 4 minutes. So January or February 2008 is when I broke 4 minutes. The first time I thought about breaking 4 minutes was 10 years before that. So it took me 10 years, right? Like I ran all the time. I've competed all the time to take my mile from 5 minutes down to 3:59. Like that didn't happen overnight, even though it happened in less than 4 minutes. Like I became a sub 4 minute miler in 3 minutes and 59 seconds by the clock. But really, like in terms of life, it was 10 years in the making.
And then, Andrea, running your triathlon here, I mean, you're going to be in the big one in Hawaii next year. I mean, literally, you're already mentally starting to train. As soon as your body is back, I'm sure you'll be back, fully trained. Yeah. But it's going to take you that whole year.
Oh, yeah.
And you're already at triathlete level to go out there and compete. I mean, you can't let it slide.
Oh, yeah. Every day, like 1%, a little bit.
Right.
One degree better.
I mean, so this journey, just to do this one here in Chattanooga 8 days ago, I mean, again, you're already fit. You're already a runner, but now you're going to take on like the biking part, right? That was biking is not your thing. Oh, you love the swim was okay, and you love running, but you got to work on that biking part of it. I mean, when does that start? In your journey. I mean, I'm assuming years ago.
Yeah. Like especially like swimming and biking both. I'd never ever competed in either one of those. So learning a new sport as an adult. And I think that, again, kind of goes back to kind of what John was saying of being like a high-level athlete. I just took up 2 new sports at the age of 30. I guess it was like 33, 34. It's just a hard thing.
Yeah.
You just don't have, I just did it.
Did you bring, because I'm going to tail this into coaching.
Yeah.
Did you bring in a swim coach to perfect your?
We have both John and I both have like a triathlon coach that specializes in triathlon. Yeah, he's a dear friend and accomplished athlete himself. His name is Tony White. He's out of Nashville, Tennessee, and he's helped a lot. Yeah,
he's a realtor as well.
He is a realtor. Yeah, he is.
So
shout out to Tony.
I'm gonna go.
If you're looking to buy or sell in Nashville, Tony White.
Yeah.
Tony White. Okay. I'm gonna go back to John on coaching in business, but from the coaching, just from the athletic point, and because it's very much, I think you guys are going to agree, I don't know if related's the word, but there's different coaches for different things. You're doing you wanted to, you were already a good runner. You probably could already swim, and I would hope most people can bike, but it's the coach
absolutely
that fine-tunes you to compete at the level that you're
absolutely. And even with running, I mean, I feel confident I could coach someone running, but when it's you that needs to do it, you can learn more. You can always take outside feedback, and it's also extremely difficult to go from, like, I feel like I'm a very accomplished runner, like I can already do it, and I feel like I'm an expert in running, but then I don't know anything about biking and swimming. So it's a challenge just to feel not good at something, and that's kind of how real estate is for me. Like I feel 12 years of teaching and a master's degree and all these things and teaching, it's like, and now, learning something new and kind of backtracking. That's mentally, it's really hard to overcome.
We're going to relate this question to the business side here in a second, but that coach, is analyzing you on all parts of it, because you're doing it all at one time. It's not like you're biking today, running tomorrow, and swimming the next day. You're doing it all at once, so you have to actually blend that together. How much effort, how much energy are you going to put forth in the swim, knowing you have 112 miles to bike, and then another marathon.
You definitely
after
can
that.
mess that up. Yeah, you definitely can. Yeah.
And that coach is helping you, and then accountability, I think, is going to be the word John's going to probably bring up over here is from coaching standpoint. But the accountability to keep you on track. How did your triathlete coach do that here recently to have you ready for Chattanooga?
Yeah, he definitely did far. It's just different than I've ever experienced before.
Right.
So just being able to trust him, and so often I either didn't want to do something or questioned myself, or questioned, if this workout is really, is this too fast, too slow, whatever. And just being able to trust it and just trust the process, and then being able to even feel that.
He you sometimes. You got to get out there, run whatever extra mile. Hey, today we've got to do this in certain time or something to keep you. Whatever
and then also just like not working out some days and knowing kind of when to let up and when to push and all of that.
The importance of rest.
Yeah, absolutely,
100%. So, John, going back to the coaching standpoint in business, have you had a coach yourself in real estate? Have you?
Yeah, I have a real estate coach that I talk to twice a month. I think with coaching, right, if your standard is pass, you don't need a coach, right? If you just like, yes or no, can I do it? Like, I could do a triathlon without a coach. Andrea could do a triathlon without a coach. But we're not going to do it as well as we would with a coach.
Right.
So, like, if I just wanted to make a living or, like, sell some houses, I wouldn't need a coach, but like I want to be really good at it. I want to bring extreme value to my clients, and that's one of the things that when I work with entrepreneurs and I'm coaching them, like I ask them to tell me their biggest goal, right? And then my responsibility as a coach is to help them be reminded of that, so that when the time is, they don't feel like doing the extra things, they didn't want to do that workout. One, it's accountability, but also it's like the self-reminder that, hey, you said this was important to you. What's going on? Why is it no longer important? Because most of the time it still is. Just something hard got in the way, and they lost sight of what was the most important thing.
Well, I think, every transaction that we do in real estate is different. Different issues come up. Our customers are different. The loan's different, how they make their money, whatever it may be. And has the coach really shortened your learning curve for you? You haven't experienced every possible situation, but as you're going through that and you've got that coach, they're foreshadowing things that's going to come up in front of you. So hopefully, would you agree, you're working out in front versus being a reactionary behind?
Yeah, for sure. Definitely, especially as the markets change, right? I have a perspective of my coach who works with top real estate agents all over the country. So she's very helpful with that. But then, in addition, I think my skill in real estate has been shaped a lot by my corporate world experience, right? Like I know what it's like to be a professional in a corporate organization. My coaching background, I think a lot of real estate, being a good real estate agent is being a coach for the person that's buying or selling the house, because that's a hard thing too. So I think coaching is beneficial for everybody, and I would encourage everybody to at least hire a life coach at one point in their time, just so they can measure against it, right? Like you might not like it might be uncomfortable, and that's fine, it's not for you. But I guarantee you'll see like an extreme amount of growth in a short amount of time.
Define a life coach, or there's something you want to do in your life, you could really shorten a term. Because I've been an entrepreneur, failed forward, done things, and I can look back at different businesses over 30 years post-college and different things that I was involved in, and learning what I know now, which is inspirational because I've seen some 30-year-olds come in here for the podcast, and I'm like blown away. I'm like, I wish I was at your level when I was 30 years old. It's so inspiring. They inspire me. But how the importance of the life coach? Sell the life coach to us. Why behind your statement there?
Yeah, so a good coach is going to be a cultivator of human performance. So if you want to perform better at something, whatever that is, hire a coach, and a good coach will help you do that. So I don't know anything about ballet, right? But if somebody wanted to get better at ballet, I think I could help them because I understand motivation. I understand what it means to want something, and then the accountability that goes forward with that. So it doesn't matter who you are. Like I guarantee somebody that's either listening to the show or somebody knows somebody wants to be better at a specific thing. You can hire somebody that will help you get better at that or achieve a specific thing that like you've thought is impossible for your whole life, right? You've developed this thought that like, I will never be able to quit smoking or I will never be able to run a marathon. But I guarantee you both of those things are false, and that if you hired the right person, they could help you do it.
this is, I mean, I think most people need to realize even the greatest athletes that are out there, and even in your case, here's a mom at 32, 33 decides she wants to run a triathlon, if I heard you correctly, and you bring in the coach and you did it. I have a good friend of mine. He taught a lot of women on the PGA Tour. These are greatest golfers in the world. They still have a coach. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Because they obviously are. It's a stroke or two on every match is a difference of them winning. Most of us would be just happy qualifying, right? Or, even if we didn't make the weekend, just being there, right? Being on the same surface as the others. These guys are competing to actually win because this is their life, and now you're jumping in, your life, and now into real estate and having that coach to shorten that learning curve, be there. And I mean, how important is for the coach in the accountability piece that we were talking with Andrea there?
It's very important, and it's important when you're selecting a coach that person's gonna care about your results, right?
Right.
And that's one of the things that comes along with investing in a coach, right? They take a professional responsibility, and people pay attention to what they pay for. And that's what's the big difference between just like joining like a fun run or something like that. Mm-hmm. Like if you want to get better at running and you joined a free run club, like those people aren't that invested, right? They didn't take any money, and nor did you pay it. But if you paid for a running coach, that person then is going to be more invested in your results because they took compensation for it. And you're going to be a whole lot more invested because you paid for it as well. Show up. Like that's where I think the professionalism of coaching comes in, is in the exchange of dollars. And that's the same thing with a real estate agent. Like, real estate agents get paid to do a really good job. So like if your real estate agent's not doing a really good job, like remember, they're getting paid for this. They should be trying really, really hard for you.
Is there a time in a real estate career that a coach is good? Do you think hiring one, did you hire one pretty much right away?
I didn't hire one right away, but I probably would have made progress more quickly had I. I don't even know why I didn't. I don't have a good answer for why I didn't, but I hired one eventually, and now my business is doing better.
Okay. All right. Now, you've got, the Richardson group here. Andrew's joining the team. One of the biggest things I've heard on the podcast of 90-some real estate agents that I've interviewed, most of them, if we talked about it, one of their biggest mistakes or regrets in the business, knowing what they know now, looking back, is getting that first assistant, someone to handle a lot of the tasks that are required when doing a transaction. Because I heard you talking in the podcast that you did last week that you're a front person. Mm-hmm. You like to be out there doing the sale. You're prospecting. You want to be out there showing the house, building the relationship. And at some point, is this something that just naturally with your business acumen that you just realized, or was something that you and your coach said, hey, you know what? You're at the point you need to either hire an assistant, which then I'm sure the discussion with Andrea began months ago. Where did that conversation come up that you need some help?
Yeah. Well, I think foundationally, when I coach entrepreneurs and I coach business people, like I've known this, that you don't have a business unless you have revenue, and you don't have a business unless you have customers. So it was not that important for me to like learn the ins and the outs of a transaction, like, because that's stuff you can just learn when you have to, right? Mm-hmm. And you'll learn it much better. You need the at-bats.
You got to get the deal.
Yeah, like it's all hypothetical. I'm like, whatever. But if it's like actual people's like lives depend on it, then I'm gonna like for sure learn it, and I'm gonna for sure do a good job. So when I started in real estate, I was like, hey, I need to meet people. I need to tell them that I would love to help them buy and sell a house. I would need to tell them all about the market. I need to inform them. I need to let them know that I'm a real estate agent who wants to serve them. And that's where my focus was. So I was not, honestly, as concerned about like making sure I had the right like customer relation management tools, the right like back end type of work. Like I figured that I could figure that out when I needed to, and that was true. Like I didn't need to know the contract like super well on the front end. Most of the time when we and people, right, like are starting a business, the problems that they want to solve don't even exist yet. Right? Like you don't have a problem about like a customer relationship management tool, like if you don't have people that you know, right? So meet the people and then figure that part out.
Yeah. Well, if you talk to agents who have worked, solo for so long, they have neglected, and they continue to, chip away, keep swinging the axe, digging another ditch to find the next golden nugget. But there's all these golden nuggets behind them because they don't have someone actually picking them up for them and using the CRM, calling their past clients, nurturing what they already have.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think this, I've gotten to the point with my business now and our business, right? This is Andrea's business too, where we have, we have people that we've served. We have clients that we love, and hopefully they love us too. And we need to cultivate that relationship. And I think one of the things that she's going to bring enormous amounts of value to is systematizing the things that kind of occur, right? The way that she operates is much different than the way that I think. And we complement each other very well that way. And I think that that's been one of the successes with us as a married couple and as parents, is like we truly do complement one another.
So, all right, since we're on that subject of working together, who is the? I think I know who is the visionary in this relationship, and who is the integrator? Who actually gets it done?
John's definitely the visionary, big brain, and then I follow behind him and do this. Right.
The details. I mean, my wife is the same. My wife, I think I don't, not to be sexist in any way, but I think women have a little more patience. It just naturally comes with them, I think, in my mind, of the details. Yeah.
Like 5 to-do lists on my desk and 5 more on my phone and 5 more in the bedroom. That's it.
Right.
Well, I think there's a component of like risk calculation too, where, I tend probably to be a little more risk averse than maybe some entrepreneurs, but I think Andrea's more risk averse than I am.
You see the risk. She's calculating it to see if it's what the actual risk is.
Yeah. But I mean, like, part of our story moving from Kentucky to Florida was like an extreme amount of risk. We did it like in the midst of COVID, and
didn't have jobs.
We moved here with no income,
no house, one car,
knowing nobody.
Yeah.
And that's like, God has blessed us in so many ways.
You calculated the risk. Well, in Florida, they're growing so much that they're going to need teachers. So getting a teaching job should not be that hard. Right?
Yeah.
That definitely was something that.
But all of that to say, like, I think Andrea has a tremendous amount of faith in God and Jesus, and then in me as well. And I will tell you, like, Tracy, her believing in me that I would be able to be successful at real estate, or that, hey, you know what, don't worry about that corporate job you've done really well at. Like, you don't need that. You could figure it out on your own. That, like, emboldened me to be like, you're right. Yes. You know what? I can. Yes. Yeah. And, without that, I don't think I would have been successful.
There is a lot to that. And I'm actually listening to a book right now of Heather Monahan, and she Getting Rid of Your Villains is the thing where she was fired from corporate America in her young 40s, and how she totally redid her whole thing. But one of the important things was that she talks about, and I've only the first 3 or 4 chapters, but she's not the only one that has said this. You've got to get rid of those people in your life who are negative. In your case, you are already a match because she's supporting you. Now, if you said something crazy, she'd probably correct you because she's your wife and she has to feel the benefit. But she's calculating the thing, but knows you that if you're doing what you like doing, you're going to 10x that. You're going to be really good at it. Yeah. And I think the disconnect, I was fortunate enough, if you listened to the last podcast with Brittany Nolan of DJ and Lindsay, at 30 years old, she understands that in their process, in their machine at that brokerage, people are good at certain things. Put those people in the right seat on the bus, and you're good at it. So the circle, all what you're talking about, get rid of the villains in your life, which a lot of, unfortunately, sometimes they're family members. They'll be naysayers, which we all have them at some level, whether it's jealousy or they really, because they wouldn't do it themselves, they're going to say for you not to do it. And then surround yourself with, in this case, your wife, with people who are going to support you. And then does it not free your mind? Absolutely. Does that free, you know what I'm saying? I want to say free your soul, really. I mean, to go out and go after, because what you want to do is going to make money. It's not like you're going to go out and you want to become an artist today and okay, where's the check going to come in? You're going to go out and sell real estate. There's other people selling real estate. John is smart. There's good people selling real estate. I think John's smarter than most people selling real estate, so he should be able to do it.
Yeah, I think you're the sum of the company you keep is what my mom told me when I was young, and that saying stuck with me. And if you want to hang out with complainers, you know what? Most of the time you're going to end up starting to complain. But if you want to hang out with high achievers who think optimistically, who are positive, who are filled with the Spirit, then you know what? You're going to be all of those things.
Because we have a lot of similarities. The things that you talk about, you're making me think of myself. Are you the type that when you go somewhere, go out to dinner or just go, it's like, this could be done better? You guys have that conversation?
Yeah, I see things from an efficiency lens. I think an economical one. Is the return on this worth the reward? And
right.
Oftentimes, I see businesses not run that way, or relationships not run that way, and
right?
Things not run that way.
Okay.
Also, I think that John, and hopefully me as well, but John's very optimistic, sees good in things. And when you go out somewhere, it's you just gotta make the best of what you got and be very grateful for what you have. I think that goes a long ways in life and in real estate and in everything.
Well, you mentioned faith earlier,
yeah,
and so forth. And I really, when I really dug into John Maxwell's reading books, he really enlightened me to that, where you see the problem, and sometimes you have to let people. I tell my wife this all the time because she wants to correct all the time, and I do want to correct some situations that I see. I'm sometimes, hey, you have to let other people. Our government, right? Our government makes mistakes all the time. Whether it's your HOA in your neighborhood or the federal government, they make mistakes all the time. Now, hopefully, their heart is where it should be. If it's not, then there's the problem. But if their heart's in the right place, they are going to make mistakes. But they're making, to me, he's guiding them to, not guiding them to make the mistake, but he's allowing them to make the mistake so they actually learn from it, so they're better in the next decision, right? Yeah. That and John Maxwell kind of gave me that mindset. The Lord has a path for us, and whether you got fired from a job or you guys literally just said, hey, he baited you to come to Florida, and you came here with no job, knowing that you guys would dig deep and yeah. Well,
it's interesting you brought up John Maxwell and you brought up life coach training too. I'm a life coach trained through the John Maxwell Coaching Academy. So John Maxwell has been influential in how I coach people. And then also I think just in the way that I think. And you mentioned there's no perfect people, right? There was only one perfect person ever, and he was crucified. So grace, I think, is a tremendous tool to have, and positive thinking.
Yeah. All right. So let's dig into some real estate because we're way into the scale. This has been a great conversation. So we're not here for, we could sit here and talk all afternoon. Let's talk about being a real estate agent. You're here in Florida. You decide to become a realtor. Which listen to your podcast. You have generations of your family that have been real estate agents, as you've had teachers. You go into real estate. What made you choose your brokerage that you're at today? What was it that you saw value in there in speaking to a new agent, someone who might be thinking about getting into real estate, or maybe started with a brokerage and realized, hold on a second, what they promised me is not here, or I need more? Because I really believe every brokerage in town is run a little differently, and offers different values for different agents at different stages of their career, right?
Sure.
So what was it that led you to where you're at today?
A couple different things. So this is a really good question. I think it is a really important thing when you're selecting your brokerage, right? If you're a real estate agent that's starting off, your success could be dependent on the brokerage that you choose. I don't want to say it will be, because that abates your own personal ownership of your career, and that's a very, very bad thing. For me, it started off because the agent that we were working with when we found our house, it was a rental, but she was a RE/MAX Unlimited agent. And our landlord is a RE/MAX Unlimited agent. And both of those women are phenomenal real estate agents who have been phenomenal mentors for me, and I love them both dearly. So that got me started with RE/MAX. But honestly speaking, they told me, at least one of them said, I wouldn't go to RE/MAX, not as a first agent, a new agent. And mainly because RE/MAX is designed, right? Their business model, I think, is for high producing agents. But when I heard that they were for high producing agents, I said, well, I want to be a high producing agent. What do you mean it's not for me? That's exactly what I want to do. So thinking back to you're the sum of the company you keep, I knew that right away, that if I want to be a good agent, I need to surround myself with good agents. Not just from high producing numbers, but people of integrity, people who do it the right way. That's okay.
So let me dig into that a little bit. So I think anyone that just heard what you just said, that is awesome. So how do you go from zero to hero here? In walking into that room, how were you welcomed? Did you go after some of the top agents and start picking your mind? What did you do to take advantage of some of the people that were now around you?
I took floor time whenever it was open, right? So like,
so that's how you and Andrew Michael know each other so well?
yeah. And Andrew Michael's a great guy. He's one of those guys
Yeah.
that was very, and he still is. He's a friend of mine. He still is very giving with information. And the whole like real estate agent team at RE/MAX Unlimited, like Michael Paul is, Matt and Naomi are phenomenal people. Like I could go on and on naming real estate agents who poured into me because I asked a question. They were super generous with their time and their information, and there was no competitiveness about it, which made a new agent feel very welcome and feel very able to ask questions. I have phenomenal brokers. James Valenti is, and his wife Erica, and then Erica's parents, Ron and Brenda, are phenomenal people who will do anything. But at the same time, what I liked about RE/MAX was that they also gave me the autonomy to fail. And I mean that by like, if I didn't come into the office for 4 weeks, like I might get a text message, right? Like maybe,
Are
hey,
you still alive?
Yeah, exactly. Not because they don't care about me, but because they want agents to want to be successful. And that's what I wanted. Like I wanted to learn at my own pace. And part of that I think is my background in running. Like I'm used to things taking a little bit of while. My professional career in the corporate world, like I wasn't walking into this from a perspective of like somebody that just graduated high school. Because if I had just graduated high school or just graduated college, I would not have been successful. Like I was able to do things because of the sum of my experiences from the last 15 years. And I also knew like I was in a position with my coaching business doing well that like I didn't have to have an immediate source of income. Like I didn't need to sell houses right away. Because if I needed to sell houses right away, I probably would have joined a team. Like I would have wanted that immediate level of
Fed
support.
the leads and start with.
And like, you know, my first 6 months of real estate, I only sold one house and that came from floor time. So, but then, you know, the next 12 months, I sold almost $15 million worth of real estate. So like that, and I didn't just sell that real estate then because of that time, right? It was because of the 6 months of consistency, the 6 months of like showing up and meeting people. Like that was why that worked.
All right. So key terms you're using here, and everyone knows if you've listened to my podcast on a regular basis, I've got them list here. Showing up. You showed up to the office. Of course, they chose a retail location in the middle of one of the hottest areas of Florida.
It's the best decision they ever made to put the brokerage right there.
Let's go get in the trap because people are going to walk in. And you have at least that opportunity. But showing up to the office every day, and did you find the top people that were in the office that you were able to peel from? They're showing up regularly too. Now, they're not as often as you because you're new, and a lot of times they're out and busy, but there was probably always someone in the office who was one of those people who you wanted to surround yourself with.
Yeah. And to this day, like Michael Paul, he's a phenomenal agent, sells a ton. He is there before anybody else every single day. I see his car every time I go there. And that's like, I remind myself of that if you want to be successful, you need to keep prospecting. Like you need to keep moving forward. You need to grow your business continually. You cannot rest in your laurels in this business.
That goes to one of the terms that are on here. And I'm writing a book in these these are chapters of the book here.
Oh, very cool.
You've already talked about showing up. Already talked about some of the people who are surrounding yourself by the people around you. Consistency. And if I could sum up what you just said, your consistency in your business is to keep moving forward, keep prospecting. Don't stop that, and keep showing up. Because that whole thing that you've learned through your athletic career is you don't go out and run a 4-minute mile after doing some jogs for a couple of weeks. It takes time. And then perfecting with a coach of how you're running, and so forth, when you should accelerate, when you should not accelerate, and that sort of thing, or get behind somebody, right? When you're running long distance.
Well, one of the beautiful things about consistency too is that it compounds, right? So like, say you prospected for a week and you met one person. Well, then you like prospect for another week and then you meet two people, and then those people tell people. Like success just compounds the same way that interest does. Like hard work has a compounding interest effect that I think a lot of people don't take into account.
Very good statement, because you don't know in that third week, someone that you tried to get a hold of in the first week finally calls you back.
Right.
Or emails you back because you left something in their mind like, hey, this is John with RE/MAX. I'm not busy. Oh, you know what? Friend of mine, that John called couple weeks ago. Let's call him back. And that's that compounding effect. But if you gave up real quickly after just 2 weeks, you wouldn't have been there in the third week to get that call.
Right,
you
exactly.
know, or in the right frame of mind to handle that call on the current. Education is one of the key components. What have you done in the short couple of years now you've been an agent to really, because you're out in Nocatee, most of the clients are fairly affluent, and you had a $2 million home that you sold, right?
I've had a couple.
Yeah. So it's a different clientele there. How important is education in the foundation? I think it's the foundation of everything that we've been talking about. But what are some of the ways that you gathered your education whether it's podcast or it's at the board of realtors taking classes or sitting down and picking brains of the top people? What are some different ways that you thought were most beneficial for you?
Good question. I think an easy way is like emails, right? And this day and age of information is just so abundant that you have to almost try not to like accumulate education. You'd almost have to like put blinders on.
It's almost too much.
Right? Like, and actually that's one way that you can is to filter out that noise.
Yeah.
And I think too many people go like an inch deep on a lot of things and they try to go to a mile wide. But if you went a mile deep on just a few things, you would get a lot more out of it.
Yes.
You know, for me specifically though, when it comes to education, you know, I want to be the market expert. Like if there's something in Nocatee going on, I want to know about it. Because people want those local experts, right? That's how you position yourself as a good agent. But then I also think it's important that if I don't know something, I'm going to tell that. Like I'm not going to pretend to know something, because all of the problems in real estate are solvable for the most part, right? Unless we get in our own way, then it becomes not solvable. And none of it is like life or death surgery where if I like cut the wrong artery, it's like over and I need to know what artery to cut in 5 seconds.
Right.
Like we can figure things out. So I think it's way more important to be very resourceful and humble, that fact that you might not know everything, than it is to like try to know everything and act like you do.
Well, if you're out there and you're searching out knowledge and you're at the board or you're going to this or you're sitting down with some of those top agents and they may bring up a story and you're like, whatever, because you don't know where to stick it. You haven't had that situation yet. But when you do have that situation, you're like, you know what? I remember talking to that realtor about that, situation, this house has a well or whatever it is, whatever situation. And where that resourcefulness that you're talking about, where to go get the answer. Because you've been out searching for all that information. You remember someone talking about it. You just didn't know where to categorize it in your brain.
Exactly.
But you do know where to go back and find it, and now you can file it away because now you're actually having that situation where you need that knowledge. Huge. What would you say is been, I say, biggest mistake? You talked about in the previous podcast about, hopefully if in the future growing the Richardson group and having agents that you can pour into. What is something that you would like tell them, like, yeah, don't do that?
Interesting question. I look at it from the lens of, I hope I listen to this podcast a year from now and I'm like, oh man, I really needed to grow. Right? Like, that continually processing perspective quickly, but as if you've had a lot of time to reflect on it, right? Like, so how you handle something within 5 minutes, like how would you handle it within 5 years? You know what I mean? And being able to just like tighten that window, if that makes sense. So, I have like a pretty short attention span to mistakes that I've made. It's categorized. It's just not like an emotional thing where it like weighs on me a whole lot. I've been fortunate enough not to have like any mistakes where I'm like, oh, I lost that guy's binder. That was like really crappy. I wish I hadn't done that.
Right.
But I would say, generally speaking, like mistakes that I've made, I've probably missed opportunities because I've had a moment of weakness where something was just a little extra hard. Like maybe I just didn't send a text message, or I like didn't provide enough value in the moment to get the person to make a purchasing decision. Right. I think I probably
those are kind of the unknowns though. They're like, hey, does the tree make noise in the woods if no
right.
one's there to hear it fall?
Right. Yeah.
But I
wish I had some
has there been a
juicy thing I
marketing
could tell you.
mistake or advice you took from someone that you're like,
well,
and then that didn't work for you?
I think with marketing stuff, I've definitely done a lot of things that like I haven't seen a like immediate response from. That would be easy to say it didn't hit. I think part of being a realtor, and really if you're selling professional services, so it would be the same for like an insurance agent or financial advisor, like your presence is generally speaking like going to be valuable. So if you sponsor like a high school team, I don't think anybody is going to like list with their house with me because I was the Nice high school band sponsor or something like that.
Right.
But like
that's a donation.
Right. But that's just part of being in the community, right?
Yeah.
You know, as this market has changed, I've definitely had things happen that did not happen when I first started in real estate, right? Like once you got something under contract 2 years ago or a year and a half ago, like it was done. Like you weren't doing anything to jeopardize that. The seller wasn't going, or the buyer wasn't going to mess up. They were going to do everything they said. Now, like I'm encountering more like appraisal gaps and repair requests. And it's getting more and more important to have really great communication, both with the client that you're serving and then the agent on the other side. Right?
And you're supporting vendors that are supporting.
Yeah, and like having a great loan officer like you, like that's very, very important to build that network. So I think coming in, and this is where I'll go with this, and my biggest mistake probably has not been investing kind of mental effort more than anything into the fact that real estate transactions might fall apart. And how can I like bulletproof the real estate transaction? Because right now, like if they're not bulletproof, there are going to be holes in it because the market is changing. I don't think buyers and sellers have ever been further apart kind of on what their house is worth.
You made that statement in the podcast. Yeah. I thought that was very, very good. Very good statement.
Yeah. And that like can really impact the transaction. So it's much harder to sell homes now than it was a year and a half ago. And I'm learning that firsthand, but I also feel like it's exciting, right? It was exciting when I got into it because the real estate market was never in this position before. Now it's like coming back to a position that it hasn't been in a while, and that's new to me and I love it.
Well, you kind of summarized everything there as you were coming together. Why someone, and I'm going to let John do his sales pitch here. Someone who may be listening, but from what I heard, and then obviously listening to you on the other podcast, you have a clear understanding that I think you should go in at the attitude. Yeah, a year ago you could probably make mistakes and get through it, but that's not how you should be doing your business. That you actually are trying to bulletproof the transaction, knowing that it isn't bulletproof, that someone might be able to get a headshot in there, but it happens. But you're with your professionalism, your thoroughness, your communication, you're minimizing those opportunities of failure.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think above all else, like Andrea and I both deeply care about what we do. Like our time is the most valuable resource that we have. And if we're not spending it together with our family and we're focusing on what we do professionally, like that is very important to us. The outcome of the transaction is very important to us. And the people that we serve are very important to us. Like the whole thing, the way that we view our life is like, this is an important thing. And we care a lot about the outcome and the effort we put into it. Like, I don't think either of us get into something without really committing to it. That's why she's successful at triathlon, having never like ever swam in her entire life, is that she was very committed to going to the pool.
You never went to the lakes in Kentucky to go swimming?
I could go on, but I wouldn't. But like she wanted to be good at it. So she woke up at 4:45 and jumped in a freezing cold pool. Well, the pool was warm, but it was freezing cold by Florida standards outside. Exactly. Right? And that was a hard thing to do, but that's just kind of like who she is that no matter what, she's going to be successful at it because come hell or high water, like she's going to give her best effort.
Give us 30 seconds. So today, now with Andrea coming on, what is because I'm sure you guys have talked through the processes. What can a customer expect now with the Richardson Group? There's two of you. What are you doing, and at what point are you handing it off to her? Not saying you're forgetting it, but obviously you're running a business. You got to do the front end. You got to open the door. She's fulfilling the order. Who's doing what, and how? Just kind of give an oversight to maybe a possible buyer or any customer, even a listing situation, of who is doing what and why. That's what you're good at, and that's what she's good at. And that's why they're going to get the best.
So currently, Andrea does not have her license yet. So she's serving more in a transaction coordinator role. She's not doing any realtor duties. One of the beautiful things about owning a business, though, is that we can do whatever way we think is best for the client, and that may look different each time. So we haven't necessarily like delineated roles or responsibilities or like certainly not job descriptions. Our promise to a client is that they're going to get the best service that they can get. Right, that we're going to work very hard for them. And beyond that, that's a kind of a moving target that I think is going to evolve with time. And I don't think that either of us are going to put a whole lot of pressure on making it look a certain way. We're going to let the process play out in a way that best serves the client. And that may be different each time, but I know what I'm good at and she knows what she's good at. And I think we'll gravitate towards those things naturally.
I think that's a great answer because knowing the many transactions, having worked in a call center for 12 years, been in this business 17 years, there's some customers that you'll click with that just feel like they got to call you. There's others, as soon as she talks to them, they're never going to call you again.
Yeah, that's probably everybody.
I would add just we kind of live in the parameters of how you do anything is how you do everything. And so if you see like us having success like in other areas, it's because we work really hard and we give everything we have, and we live like that in every aspect of our life, and we've kind of said that throughout this podcast.
Well, I think it's
everything
we were talking about John Maxwell and so forth, and I mentioned, it's where your heart is.
Yep.
And if your heart's in the right place, the rest of it will come together. Yeah. All right, we're going to go to our 2-minute warning questions here. What is your guys' favorite things to do, or with the kids, the girls? What's your favorite things to do here in Northeast Florida?
Disney World.
You mentioned Disney World. Yeah. But locally on a day, obviously, hopefully you're not going over there
We love
every
going
weekend.
to the beach. Seemingly every weekend we are in Disney World. But sometimes we have to do other things. We love going to the beach. So I mentioned I grew up in Ocean City, New Jersey. Beach kid through and through, 10 years in Ocean City Beach Patrol. Like, I feel at home on the beach. And even though Andrea didn't grow up there, I think that she has a stronger affinity for the beach than I do. So that's one thing that we love to do. We love the Nocatee amenities. I mean, the Spray and Splash Park are both phenomenal. We love swimming, and
that's the sub Disney, right? We can't go to Disney. We're going to Splash Park.
Yeah. Sometimes I feel like we get to Disney World and the pools are disappointing.
Yes.
Yeah.
You have to share them with too many other people that you don't know. Yeah, I agree.
We all have the golf cart life too. We just like being outside with each other.
And isn't that, obviously Nocatee, that's the lifestyle it wants to sell. So those people who are listening, or that, if they take a clip out of this, and I love your, how do you put on your website is
Love the Florida life.
Love the Florida life. And that's really what you're selling lifestyle. Whether you want to live out in Nocatee and have the splash parks, or you want to go 15 miles inland and, maybe get some acreage and buy a manufactured home. That's all the power to you. Whatever, there's so many things, and in between there that you, the lifestyle that you want to live at the beach or on the river, or,
And, with Florida, when I was growing up, Florida is where I went on vacation, and I always felt freedom when I was in Florida. It sounds kind of like cliche or weird to say maybe, but like when I got into the state, I just felt like I was able to do like anything. And I think the Florida life embodies sort of that feeling that you get here, and it's like things are possible. It's like the California gold rush, probably. Like, people went out west and like, man, I can do anything. This is amazing. Like, that's kind of how I feel every day. And Andrea and I talk about it all the time. Like, we are so grateful to wake up in the morning with like endless possibilities.
That is.
It's like on vacation when you wake up and the sun's shining and the windows are open and you like go on a jog or go get donuts and you're on a bike, and it's like I have that every single morning. Morning.
I see you like to dress casually like me. I try to wear shorts every day of the year. If I can. Occasionally I'll put on a pair of jeans if it's a little cooler, but to see me in slacks, that's a rare situation because I'm in Florida.
Yes, Florida. Exactly.
That's Florida.
All right, last and final question. Is it more important who you know or what you know and why? We'll start with John.
Sure. It's like the chicken or the egg. I don't think you can have one or the other. Ultimately, I think who you know is going to be more important because from them, you're going to learn things, right? Like if I know the smartest person in the world, eventually I'm going to get to be like kind of smart. So I'll know stuff. You could know everything in the world. Like this is how I'll answer it. If I had to choose one, I'd rather know the best people than know everything.
Okay.
Should I take the other one just because?
Sell the other one.
Well, you come from the education side, so that's interesting because I don't, although I think some people, if they got on the administrative side, would say it's who you know is how you got there.
Yeah.
But from the teaching side, that mindset of education is because I don't think we teach our kids enough
So I think
who
it's
you know.
So I think it's really like who you are, and so education and finding out like feeling confident in what you know, feeling confident in who you are. That's really I think where the power comes, and so that would probably be more the education side in me, like knowing that you're confident in what you know, what you can do, what you can accomplish, who you are. And then you can respond to anything
because you can be in front of the most smartest person in the world, or most influential person in the world, someone you should know, but you don't know enough to know that you're in front of that person. Really, and then obviously I think the common theme here is relationships, to build those relationships with those people. But guys, I appreciate you coming on today.
This is a lot of fun. Thank you, Tracy.
We could talk for hours, but hopefully our hour and 16 minutes, we got enough
was
there.
very enjoyable.
Everyone got to
Great.
know you guys
Yeah.
a little bit here and coming in, but thank you very much for coming on.
I appreciate it.
Thank you.